The story begins at a seemingly normal school with several students walking through the courtyard. Inside the school, we arrive at the cafeteria where many students are enjoying their lunch. A boy is sleeping at a table until his chubby friend arrives with food and calls him Gavin Clark. His friend tries to wake him up and says he brought food so he could eat. The friend thinks the guy is tired because he was up late talking to Senior Scott. Waking up confused, the young man wonders where he is and notices a very good smell in the air. He looks at the tray and sees a full meal with rice and chicken, looking surprised. Suddenly, the guy jumps up and yells for everyone to hear that this is real food. The boy now stares at the plates, drooling with hunger, and his friend is startled by his reaction. Without a second thought, he starts devouring the food on the table like a wild animal. The chubby friend asks him to take it easy or else he'll end up choking. He then gets mad because he realizes the protagonist is eating his own food. After eating everything, the guy appears with a full belly and says he's finally back. With a serious look, he thinks that he can't believe it, but it seems he has truly been reborn. His friend asks if he's full and if he was a starving ghost in his past life. The protagonist replies that he was indeed reincarnated from a ghost who was overcome by hunger. With a chilling smile, he reveals that in a freezing apocalypse, he perished from starvation. The friend doesn't understand anything and asks if his girlfriend broke up with him for him to act like this. The guy then puts a hand on his friend's shoulder to calm him down and explain the situation. He says that Yahello Parker is alive and that now they can start over and get everything back. Yahello gets confused and asks his friend to stop being weird because of course he's alive. The protagonist then asks what the date is, and his friend replies that it's August 8th, 2024. The guy explains that in half a month, the world will enter an ice age from a 3-month-long blizzard. His friend thinks that's ridiculous since it's the middle of summer and asks if he's having problems. The young man says he needs help, and Yahello says he'll do anything because of their friendship. So the protagonist asks to borrow 1 billion, and his friend spits out his drink in shock. The chubby guy asks if he's being serious, and the young man confirms he is completely serious. Yahello refuses right away, saying that even if he sold his own father, he couldn't get 1 billion. The protagonist asks how much he would sell his father for, and Yahello guesses around 500 million tops. The guy gets irritated and yells that Yahello's the one selling his father, calling him heartless. At that moment, a couple walks past them, and the blonde guy says he reserved a private room for the two of them. The two friends then look in the direction of the couple that just passed by. This guy Zach says he's going to show Xenia something big after dinner, and she likes the idea. Yahello recognizes the girl as Xenia and points out that she's cheating on his friend with Zach Young. The couple then turns around and comes face to face with the two guys standing there, watching everything. Xenia is shocked and asks what Gavin is doing there with a stunned look on her face. The chubby friend gets angry and says that Gavin saved up to buy expensive clothes for her. The girl doesn't care and says she won't explain anything because it is exactly what it looks like. The protagonist has a flashback to his past life where he took care of her after she was abandoned. He remembers that she betrayed him several times and that he passed away from hunger because of her. His friend tries to convince Gavin to leave since the girl isn't even hiding it anymore, but the guy says he's in no hurry. Yahello is confused and asks why they would stay because just looking at her makes him feel sick. Zach mocks the protagonist, saying that Xenia called him clingy, and it looks like she was right. The young woman then tells Gavin to stop bothering her and says that everything he did was harassment and that she finds him disgusting. With a serious look, the protagonist asks if they are done talking. The blonde guy asks if he isn't going to leave, and Xenia says that even if he got on his knees, she wouldn't take him back. His friend tries to pull him away, but Gavin asks for 5 more minutes to handle the situation. Yahello doesn't understand why and wonders why a nice guy like him can't see who she really is. Zach laughs and says he'd love to see the guy's tricks in 5 minutes, and if it's entertaining, he'll give him a prize. Without a second thought, the protagonist gives the blonde guy a hard slap across the face. The girl is shocked by the scene and desperately yells Zach's name. The friend and everyone else around are left with their mouths wide open at what just happened. Holding his face, the blonde guy gets furious and asks how the guy dares to hit him. Zach then raises his fist in anger and gets ready to return the attack. He yells that he's going to finish the protagonist, but the dark-haired guy remains calm and still in the same spot. Before the blonde guy can do anything, Gavin hits him with a kick to the face and tells him to get lost. The chubby friend is impressed by his buddy's strength and wonders just how tough he is. With Zach on the ground, Xenia runs over, worried to see if he's okay. She yells at Gavin, telling him he's in huge trouble for laying a hand on the hair of a major corporation. The blonde guy gets up and says he's a black belt in Taekwondo and that he won't lose to a punk. Without even giving the blonde guy time to react, the protagonist lands another punch and calls him trash. He thinks that the apocalypse was a chance to learn how to fight and that dealing with a guy like this is easy. His friend is shocked by his buddy's strength and asks since when he became so strong. The girl gets furious and yells that the guy will regret hurting Zach. She then tells the protagonist to get on his knees and apologize or else she'll never forgive him. Out of patience, the guy slaps the young woman across the face and asks who she thinks she is. The blonde guy gets up furious and threatens to destroy the protagonist, saying it will be as easy as crushing an ant. But before he can do anything, the protagonist hits him with an uppercut to the chin. Seizing the opportunity, the dark-haired guy quickly grabs something from the blonde's jacket pocket. He then reveals a spray can and says he knew he'd find that on him. The blonde guy yells desperately and tells the protagonist to give the object back immediately. With a smirk, the dark-haired guy asks how many girls he has already harmed using that item. The other guy denies everything and tries to get the spray back, saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. Without wasting any time, the protagonist sprays the entire contents of the can in the blonde guy's face. He starts to scream in pain, and the girl runs over, worried, to see what happened. She asks what's wrong, but the blonde guy tells her to get away and stay away from him. The guy's eyes get strange and he seems to be completely out of his mind. He then turns and grabs the girl next to him with a crazed look. Completely out of control, the blonde-haired guy ends up tearing the young woman's dress in front of everyone. The girl panics and yells for him to stop because they are in the middle of the cafeteria. The girl screams desperately for help while Zach continues to attack her uncontrollably. The protagonist announces that the 5 minutes are up and his friend is still in shock from the scene. He explains that the spray was a substance that makes a person lose their senses and turn into a beast. His friend worries about the police, but the guy says Zach wouldn't risk being exposed. And also, being very proud, the Hair of the Dragon group would try to get revenge on his own. Yahello agrees and says that given his personality, he would handle this privately. Leaving the cafeteria, the chubby guy asks where they're going now. With a smile on his face, the protagonist replies that he's going to sell his house. They soon arrive at a real estate agency, and the friend seems very worried about the idea. He questions selling his parents' only house, but the guy is completely decided. The young man thinks that with the money, he needs to stock up on supplies for the apocalypse. The real estate agent hands over the papers and comments that there's no rush to sell with prices so high. Leaving the place, the friend asks what their next stop will be. The protagonist then announces with a smile that now it's time to spend money. A short time later, the two friends arrive at a very large supermarket. The guy starts asking the employee for 1,000 units of rice flour and oil, and he also asks for 10,000 units of each of the canned goods on the shelf. The attendant is completely shocked by the order and asks if the gentleman is sure. The young man confirms and his friend jokes, asking if he's opening his own supermarket. He then asks if the market does deliveries, and the employee says yes, they take care of everything. The guy asks if his friend's family has a warehouse, and Yahello questions if he's going to store everything there. The young man then asks to borrow the warehouse and for the address so he can go buy more things. At that moment, two girls appear in the supermarket aisle, watching the guys. They recognize him and mock him for being cheated on, questioning how he can afford to shop at that place. Next, he orders 5 state-of-the-art computers and 10 televisions and video game consoles. The guy thinks that with the apocalypse, entertainment will be essential for passing the time. The employee gets super excited and calls him the biggest customer of the year, leaving the other two shocked. The girls are in shock over the cost and wonder how a poor guy like him has so much money. The protagonist then asks to have all the electronics and the winter jackets packed up. The purple-haired girl wonders if he's really poor since he's already spent over 1 million. They conclude that he's a rich guy in disguise and that this is a huge opportunity for them. The guy thinks he's almost ready for the apocalypse and now needs to focus on something more important. A female voice greets him and the guy recognizes her instantly with a serious look. The two of them approach and compliment him, saying he suddenly got much more handsome. He remembers that in the apocalypse, they led some thugs and once robbed him, nearly leaving him to freeze. The purple-haired one asks why he's so quiet and invites him to get a bite to eat. The guy accepts the invitation and asks his friend to take the things back while he handles something. The girls celebrate that the fool agreed and plan to spend all his money at a fancy restaurant. The protagonist says he's starving and leaves the market with the two girls. A short time later, the trio arrives in front of a building that looks very expensive and luxurious. The girls take him to the restaurant, and he pretends to be surprised by how expensive the place looks. Once inside the fancy place, one of the girls asks the guy what he thinks of the food there. Looking at the menu, the protagonist pretends to be shocked and asks if it isn't a little too pricey. The two don't care and say that if he's not going to order anything, they'll order for themselves. The one in the green dress then orders all the most expensive dishes on the menu from the waitress. An hour later, the purple-haired girl says she's super full, as she hadn't eaten that much in a long time. She asks Gavin how his meal was, and he says it was great but that he needs to step out for a bit. The protagonist then gets up from the table and calmly walks toward the reception area. There, he ignores the bill and asks them to prepare 100 tables with the same dishes for 10 days from now. The employee's jaw drops at the request and she asks if the gentleman is sure about that. The guy just hands the girl a VP card and says he can pay for everything in advance. He remembers eating canned food during the apocalypse and wants to secure good food for the future. The girls think he went to pay and call him a rich fool, planning to go buy purses afterward. The receptionist confirms the huge order and then asks about the bill for their table. With a victorious smile, the young man takes his card back and says they can pay for themselves. He thinks that he spent almost all the money from the house and that now it's time to take out loans. The guy then starts accessing various online loan websites on his phone. Walking down the street, he celebrates getting 2.7 million from 36 companies. Suddenly, the protagonist's cell phone starts to ring, and the name Sharon appears on the screen. On the other end of the line, the girl shouts furiously, asking where on earth he's gone. On the phone, the guy says something unexpected came up and that he's already on his way home. With a mocking smile, he then asks why he should be the one to pay the bill. On the other end of the line, the girl screams that he was the one who invited them to eat. The young man retorts that he never invited them, and that they were the ones who dragged him there. The purple-haired one gets furious and asks if he expects them to pay for that expensive food. He scoffs at them and asks why they're complaining about the price if they insisted on ordering the priciest dishes. A man in the restaurant calls them a disgrace and says Gavin is a loser who can't pay. She then asks the receptionist if it's true that he ordered 100 tables, and the girl confirms it. Desperate, the girl begs Gavin to come back and pay the bill since he has so much money. The guy hangs up the phone and says he's not paying for two spoiled brats like them. The girls panic because they don't have any money, and the manager informs them they don't do tabs. Angrily, the girl decides to call some guy named Hunter to teach the protagonist a lesson. Meanwhile, the young man arrives in front of a lottery store with a plan in mind. He remembers winning the lottery in his past life, and that now he can win much more. Using his memory from the past, the guy fills out the ticket with the numbers he knows will win. Holding the ticket, he says that now he just has to wait 2 days for the results. The protagonist then returns to the warehouse and finds his friend Yahello on the floor. The chubby guy complains that he was left behind, but his friend promises to take him out to have some fun. Inside the warehouse filled with boxes, his friend asks what the point of spending so much is. The young man explains that in the apocalypse, these supplies will save lives and asks Yahello to trust him. His buddy says that if the guy didn't seem so normal, he'd think his friend had gone crazy. The protagonist smiles and says there's no rush because in a few days, the chubby guy will believe him. Suddenly, some strange guys show up, and one of them asks if he's the guy named Gavin Clark. The young man confirms his identity and asks if they're goons for a man named Hunter. A bald guy with a bat accuses him of messing with Hunter's woman and calls him bold. The chubby friend gets scared and threatens to call the police as the thugs surround them. The bald guy scoffs and dares him to call to see who gets there first, the police or him. The protagonist then steps in and tells his friend that he doesn't need to call the authorities. The thugs laugh at the young man's attitude and call him a coward for not wanting to involve the police. The chubby friend tries to negotiate and says his father is the head of a major construction company. The bald guy recognizes the name and says he won't touch him, but that their target is Gavin. Desperate, his buddy yells for the protagonist to run while he tries to hold the guy's back. A blonde guy shoves the chubby friend, and the bald guy prepares to attack the young man with the baseball bat. Terrified, the chubby friend screams Gavin's name desperately as he watches the scene. The protagonist stops the bat with one hand and says the attack was slow and that the guy has never trained. Next, he lands a powerful kick in the bald guy's stomach, making the man drop the bat. The big guy spits out a bit of blood and asks how the little brat dared to do that. The young man picks the bat up off the floor and lands a solid hit right in the goon's face. The hit is so strong that the bat smacks right into the bald guy's mouth, leaving him in shock. The other goons get scared and say the kid is ruthless because he completely took out the bald guy. With the bat on his shoulder, the protagonist smiles and challenges all the others to come at him together. Pointing at the goons, he stares them down with a look full of confidence and determination. The blonde guy then yells for his buddies to go all out and finish the kid. With swift and precise movements, the young man takes down all the thugs and seems to be having fun. The chubby friend is shocked and wonders if that's still the same Gavin he knew. With everyone on the floor, the guy asks if that was enough, and the goons surrender on the spot. He then demands 100,000 from each of them, and the blonde guy shouts that this is extortion. Out of patience, the protagonist lands another blow to the thug's face, who screams in pain. The guy threatens to mess up their legs if they don't hurry up and make the transfer. A little later, the young man's phone gets a notification for 600,000 in his account. He thinks that he's not cruel, but that the apocalypse has changed his mind forever. The protagonist hugs his friend and says he's going to take him someplace really exciting. The two arrive at a nightclub full of lights, with several people dancing on the floor. The chubby friend loves the place and says it's perfect for relaxing after so much trouble. The guy goes to the bar and tells the girl he's looking for the boss for a delivery. Suddenly, the two friends are walking down a hallway lined with several security guards in suits. Yahello is terrified and the protagonist asks if the situation is exciting or not. The chubby guy says his heart is racing and that this is the wrong kind of excitement. The security guards start shouting that Mr. Lowe has arrived, making his friend even more tense. They then stand in front of a man with his back turned, who has long purple hair. The man turns around, revealing himself to be an old man who asks if they are there for a delivery. The protagonist says it's the first time they've met and that he came after hearing about the delivery. Mr. Lowe then questions where the goods are, since the two of them are empty-handed. With a smile, the guy says that they are the goods, and the old man finds the situation amusing. But suddenly, the boss gets serious and orders his armed security guards to detain the two young men. The chubby friend panics and tries to use his father's name to get out of the mess. He asks what kind of goods they're delivering, and the young man explains that it's their organs. Yahello gets even more desperate and shouts, how does his friend expect him not to panic? The young man then challenges the boss and asks if the famous Mr. Lo doesn't dare to buy. He then makes an offer, saying that for 10 million, all his organs belong to the old man. The boss makes a counteroffer and offers 5 million, saying the market price is low. The guy accepts and asks for the money first, promising to deliver the body in 3 days, and the old man agrees. Mr. Lo then orders one of his goons to bring the contracts for the two to sign. The protagonist asks why there's only one contract and requests another for his friend, who immediately refuses. Ignoring the protests, the young man tells the security guard not to listen to him because he is indeed selling. The security guard then forces the chubby guy to sign the contract at gunpoint. Leaving the place, his buddy yells at his friend, calling him inhuman for selling him out. The guy tells him not to worry, but the chubby friend says Lo is a dangerous gang leader. With a serious look, the young man reveals that in 3 days, that Lo guy will be gone. His friend doesn't believe it, but the protagonist says he's going to make him believe in the apocalypse. In front of a large mansion, a realtor asks if the guy is sure he only wants to rent that one house. He confirms with absolute certainty and tells the woman he's not interested in any of the others. The chubby friend doesn't understand anything and asks why they're suddenly renting a mansion. The protagonist remembers that in his past life, that mansion was the safest place during the apocalypse. He then decides that since he passed away there in his past life, his new life will begin in that very same place. The realtor warns that the owner doesn't want to rent, but the guy offers double the rental price. Even so, she says it's not a matter of money, and he raises the offer to 5 times the price. With a smile, the young man offers 10 times the rent and says he can pay the first month right now. Excited, the woman guarantees she'll get the house for him, even if she has to beg the owner. He then says he has one condition: he wants to completely renovate the house before moving in. Suddenly, an older woman appears, telling Xenia to seize the opportunity with Zach. The chubby friend is surprised to see the girl there and wonders what she's doing. The guy explains that it's simple and that this Zach young guy has a mansion in that community. Xenia gets an expression of anger and contempt upon seeing her ex-boyfriend standing there. She yells at him and accuses him of stalking her again after what happened last time. The girl's mother butts in and says her daughter would never be interested in a poor, futureless student. The protagonist gets annoyed and asks if the two of them are idiots and who would be stalking them. With a mocking smile, he says they can condemn him all they want, but renting a house has nothing to do with them. Xenia scoffs at the guy and doubts he has the money to pay the $20,000 a month rent. At that moment, the realtor returns and announces that everything is settled and the rent is $25,000. Xenia's mother is shocked and can't believe the poor guy actually rented the mansion. The girl mocks him and says it's useless for him to try so hard to be near her because she doesn't want him. The protagonist and his friend think the girl is completely crazy and delusional for thinking that. Her mother says the rent is low and that this doesn't qualify him to chase after her daughter. The realtor reminds them that the offer was for 10 times the price, and the guy agrees to pay right away. Mother and daughter are speechless and doubt he has $250,000 to pay. Unfazed, the young man makes the transfer on the spot and shows the receipt on his phone. The realtor hands over the keys and says the house is his to renovate as he wishes. The mother wonders if the guy is from a rich family, and Xenia says it's impossible and she'll investigate. Walking down the street, the protagonist asks if his friend knows the head of the biggest renovation company in the city. He asks his friend to set up a meeting, and the chubby guy questions the plan to renovate the mansion. The guy tells him not to ask questions and just set up the meeting because he'll understand everything tonight. His friend manages to get the meeting for the same day because the boss postponed everything to meet him. The protagonist thanks him and says he'll send a truck of instant noodles as a gift. With a smile, he tells his friend not to worry because his father will love the gift soon enough. They arrive at the renovation company, and an employee asks them to wait for the CEO. Xenia and her mother are also there, and the older woman tells her daughter to secure a good renovation. The two friends enter the waiting room, and the receptionist asks if they have an appointment. The girl gets furious upon seeing them and accuses him of following her to the renovation company. The protagonist loses his patience and wonders why he keeps running into these two idiots. Xenia makes fun of the protagonist's friend and says it's foolish to renovate a place that isn't his. The guy introduces himself to the receptionist and says he has a meeting scheduled for that time. The mother and daughter doubt he's there for a renovation and think he's just showing off. A heavy-set man in a suit arrives and asks the employee where the person he has a meeting with is. The receptionist points toward the group and says the person is right there, waiting. Xenia's mother gets all excited seeing Mr. Zhao and praises Zach's influence. She then turns to the protagonist and rubs the difference in their status in his face. The red-haired girl approaches and greets the man with a smile on her face. Mr. Zhao is confused and asks if she has a meeting scheduled him at that moment. Xenia quickly says yes, and that she is the person who is there for the meeting. The man asks if her name is Gavin Clark, and the girl says no and that her name is Xenia. Out of patience, Mr. Zhao shoves her aside and tells her not to get in his way. The protagonist then approaches and formally introduces himself as Gavin Clark to the man. The company head is surprised by the guy's youth and invites him to talk in more detail. Xenia's mother doesn't understand anything, and her daughter says it must be a connection through Yaniel's rich family. Once inside the manager's office, the two prepare to discuss the renovation project. Mr. Yahello sits down and asks his young friend what he wishes to renovate. With a confident smile, the protagonist replies that he wants to renovate an entire mansion. The man says it's a small job and that he'll ask his design director to handle it. But the guy insists and says it would be better if Mr. Zhao himself discussed it personally. Mr. Zhao says that to be honest, he's very busy and only deals with large projects. The protagonist then assures him that he is a large project, and the man asks about the budget. The guy reveals that his budget is at least 30 million, and the boss starts to laugh. But suddenly, the man realizes the amount and is completely shocked by what he just heard. He then asks if the young man is sure about the number, and if he didn't mean 3 million. With a confident smile, the guy confirms that the total budget is 30 million. A director shows up to help, but the boss dismisses him on the spot and says he'll handle everything himself. Mr. Zhou comments that with that money, he could buy a mansion and asks about the renovation. In response, the protagonist hands over a roll of paper and says the project blueprints are in there. Analyzing the papers, the man is shocked and asks if he's building a fortress. The young man says he can pay more if needed and that the only requirement is to finish in half a month. The boss finds the project difficult and says it looks like a war bunker for the apocalypse. The guy then tells him to assume it is the apocalypse and offers an advance payment of 20 million. With a determined look, the man accepts the job and promises to mobilize all the company's resources. Leaving the place, the chubby friend freaks out and says it's crazy to spend 35 million on a rented house. The protagonist warns that the money will soon be worthless, and his friend asks where the cash came from. He then reveals that he took out 10 million in loans, and Yaniel says the apocalypse better be real. Outside, Xenia taunts him and asks how much he spent trying to get her attention. Already out of patience, the guy tells her to mind her own business and says it's none of her concern. The girl's mother brags that her daughter spent 1 million and says that's real power. The chubby friend chimes in and says 1 million is nothing because Gavin spent 35. Xenia starts laughing and says she'd believe it if it were 500,000, but not 35 million. The protagonist then challenges her, asking if she'd call him daddy if he really spent that much. The girl says she's already investigated and knows he got 3 million at most from his house. Her mother joins in on the joke and says she'll call him daddy if he really spent all that. An employee appears and hands over the contract that the guy forgot to grab when he left. The older woman snatches the paper and says she's going to expose his lie in front of everyone there. But upon reading the document, her expression changes completely and her jaw drops. Her daughter asks what's wrong, and the mother is speechless when she sees the amount written on the paper. With a look of panic, the woman reveals that the amount on the contract really is 35 million. Desperately, she yells that the contract is fake because it's impossible for him to have that much money. The employee defends the company and says the contract was signed by the boss and is not fake. The protagonist approaches the woman and calls her out on her promise to call him daddy. Without hesitating, he slaps the woman across the face, sending her flying to the side. The chubby friend celebrates the scene, and the guy says it's time for them to leave. Xenia screams furiously and swears she'll never forgive him for humiliating her mother like that. By nightfall, the two friends return to the mansion they had just rented that day. The chubby guy doesn't understand anything and asks why they're back at that place. The protagonist smiles and says that now he's going to make him believe the apocalypse is coming. His friend thinks the guy is acting weird and that either he's gone crazy or the apocalypse is real. The chubby friend complains about the cold and says the weather is strange for the middle of summer. With his phone in hand, the protagonist says it's almost time for something to happen. Suddenly, a shooting star crosses the sky, and the guy says that it has finally arrived. His buddy doesn't understand and asks what's so special about a simple shooting star. The young man explains that the apocalypse will come soon, but that there are some clear signs beforehand. The chubby guy points to the sky, frightened, and says the star seems to be coming toward them. The protagonist reveals that the stars grant abilities, and that's why the neighborhood became a base. He remembers that one of these stars fell on the mansion and was found by a thief. His friend panics and yells for the other to run because the star is going to hit them head on. But the guy stays put and with a smile says that this opportunity is all his. The chubby guy tries to stop him and asks if he has some kind of death wish. The protagonist's body is enveloped in a golden light, and he appears to float in the air. His friend is in shock and thinks it's the end because Gavin was crushed by the shooting star. But to his surprise, the guy is fine and says his physical attributes have increased 5 times over. With a golden aura around him, he turns to his buddy and asks if he believes him now. The chubby guy is speechless and, with wide eyes, asks if his friend isn't gone. The protagonist smiles and says not only is he alive, but he also gained a special ability. His friend doesn't see a difference and asks how he got stronger if he looks the same as before. The guy then places a hand on the chubby friend's shoulder, who is confused by the action. With incredible strength, he lifts his friend into the air with just one hand, leaving him shocked. With a confident smile, the guy asks if his friend finally believes him. The friend freaks out because he weighs over 90 kilograms and was easily lifted with just one hand. Suspended in the air by his companion, the young man is surprised and asks what's going on. With a confident smile, his savior tells him to get down immediately. He then leaps from the top of the mansion, and his friend screams in panic, fearing the worst for them both. Landing safely with his friend in his arms, a powerful impact is felt on the ground. The sturdier companion is completely shocked and wonders if he's all right after the fall. A smile appears on the hero's face as he asks if the other believes him now. The answer is yes, since he survived the jump. Meanwhile, Xenia and her mother are inside the house, and the older woman asks what her daughter is looking at. The girl replies that she saw a shooting star land near the mansion of Gavin, whom her mother hates. With a smile, Xenia reassures her mother, saying that Zack will return to get his revenge on Gavin. The matriarch hears the doorbell and seems surprised by the sudden noise. Zack Young appears at the door. The woman greets him happily, and he asks where Xenia is. The young woman appears with a seductive look, calling Zack's name to get his attention. Zack holds her in a suggestive way and tells her to hurry up, as he's very worked up. The girl's mother is still there, and Zack tells her to go boil some water. Xenia tells her boyfriend not to rush and mentions that Gavin has also moved into the neighborhood. Fury takes over Zack, who fumes that Gavin dared to show up before he had a chance to look for him. The girl's mother reveals to Zack that Gavin rented a mansion in the neighborhood to be close to Xenia. With a look of anger, Zack promises he'll make a call that will make his rival regret this for the rest of his life. With a furious expression, he makes a call and asks to speak with a man named Biao. Next, a neon sign shows the entrance to a place called Box Club. In a ring, two fighters face off while someone in the crowd yells for one of them to go for it. Zack is on the phone, smiling, and offers 200,000 for his contact to take care of someone. Biao, the fighter with the mohawk, replies that he understands and will be back in 2 hours. The boxer tells his opponent to stop the fight because he has a job to do. Biao's opponent gets annoyed, calls him a cocky rookie, and asks if he wants a real fight. Biao lands a powerful punch on his rival, knocking him out of the match. The crowd is in shock, commenting that Biao is the new underground boxing champion. Back at the mansion, Gavin looks at the horizon and reflects that these will be the first stages of the apocalypse. His chubby friend complains that the situation is cruel and that he never imagined such a terrible fate for humanity. Gavin asks Yahello what he plans to do about the whole situation. Yahello states that he will follow his friend's instructions and do whatever he says. In a joking tone, his guide tells him to start by selling his own father to get money. The young man replies that his father has assets but won't believe in the apocalypse. He'll think his son has gone crazy. The group's leader explains that money will be worthless in 15 days and that only supplies will matter. Yahello agrees and says that even if his father beats him, he will sell everything until the family goes broke. With a serious look, the other interrupts him, asking what's wrong. His companion asks what's happening, and the answer comes quickly: the mansion is surrounded. Outside, henchmen surround the house, and one of them warns that the target cannot escape. Biao orders his men to break down the mansion door urgently. One of the intruders prepares to break down the door with a huge sledgehammer. The henchman tries to knock down the door but is repelled by an invisible force. Inside, the two friends watch the fallen man, and Yahello asks who the intruders are. Biao is surprised and questions if the resident noticed them, wondering if he is also a trained fighter. The resident recognizes Biao and calls him by his full name, Duan Hu Biao. Confused, the fighter asks how they know each other. In his thoughts, the hero of the house remembers that Biao is one of the lucky few who gained powers in the apocalypse and kept his consciousness. Biao threatens the young man, saying he won't go easy and will put him in bed for half a year. With a confident smile, the mansion's defender retorts that he won't go easy either and tells the attacker to get lost. Annoyed by the attitude, Biao charges forward to attack with a powerful punch. The target dodges the attack, thinking that the fighter's movements are too slow. Biao tries to hit him again, but the blow is dodged once more. The counter-attack comes with a powerful punch to the stomach, which knocks Biao to the ground. The henchmen are shocked to see their boss on the floor, finding the scene unbelievable. Biao struggles to get up while his opponent asks if he's going to give up. The underground champion refuses to surrender, stating that the person who can make him submit hasn't been born yet. With a kick, the defender knocks him down again, leaving him badly hurt. He then asks Biao what he thought of the fight, but the man remains on the ground, injured. The fighter replies that it's unbelievable to be so helpless, but he still refuses to give up. Smiling, his opponent says it would be boring if he surrendered easily and offers a way to save his sister. Shocked, Biao asks how he knew about his sister's illness. An image shows the fighter sitting beside his sick sister's bed with a sad expression. The mysterious man explains that Biao fights to raise money to save his sister, who has an incurable disease. Biao, now hopeful, asks if the one who knows everything can really cure her illness. With a smile, the young man claims to be the only one in the world who knows how to save her and says he must believe. The fighter believes him as he was defeated and asks what he must do to save his sister. The condition is given with a smile, beat Zack Young badly enough to put him in bed for half a month. A look of fury appears on Biao's face as he already plans how he will deal with Zack. The fighter gathers his henchmen and orders them to follow him to carry out the new mission. One of the men asks if he really believes the stranger, and Biao confirms, saying he is his last hope. In his mansion, Zach Young assumes Gavin must already be in the hospital and that it's time to make his move. Xenia is with Zach and the girl calls him terrible with a mischievous smile. Suddenly, loud knocks on the door startle Zach. Xenia's mother gets annoyed by the interruption in the middle of the night and goes to answer. The woman opens the door and asks who these people are invading her home. Biao tells the lady to get out of the way so they can enter quickly. Xenia's mother scolds the fighter, calling him rude for barging into her house. Bio responds with a powerful punch and tells her to get out of his way. Once inside the mansion, Zach asks if the job was done. Zach approaches Biao and hands him 200,000, saying he didn't need to come in person. Biao's response is a powerful punch that hits Zach square in the face. Xenia is frightened to see her boyfriend bleeding and asks Biao what he is doing. The fighter ignores Xenia's plea and orders his men to attack Zach. The henchmen start punching and kicking Zach on the floor with great anger. The victim begs Biao to stop threatening him and saying his family would throw him in the gutter. Biao tells his henchmen to seize the attack for a moment. Annoyed, Zach says Biao made a huge mistake by attacking him. The group leader ignores his words and tells his men to tie up and rough up the target again. Zach panics, calling Biao crazy for doing this. The attacker then asks who Gavin Clark is and demands an explanation for all of this. Hanging upside down, the target reveals he only has access to 10 million and needs approval for more. Biao demands that he transfer the 10 million to his account immediately. Gavin's phone displays a text message with a notification of money received. His friend tells him the professor sent a message about a practical training session, but the young man says he's not going. Upon hearing that the training is near North New City, he changes his mind. With a smile, the young man decides to participate, as he was already planning to explore that place. His phone rings. It's Biao, reporting that Zach Young covered up 10 million and that the money has already been sent. In front of a lottery shop, the young man thinks about checking the tickets he bought. He reflects that if he wins the lottery, he can buy a lot of supplies for the apocalypse. A while later, he gets angry for not having won and wonders how this could have happened. The strategist thinks that nothing has changed and that maybe the director of events is one step ahead of him. He concludes that he needs to find another way to make a lot of money to prepare. College students gather in front of a bus for the finance practical training. The girls who tricked him at the restaurant stare at him, annoyed, and ask if he dares to show up. With a sarcastic smile, he questions why he wouldn't dare to show his face. They confront him for leaving without paying the restaurant bill and demand an explanation. With an indifferent expression, the young man asks what that has to do with him. One of the girls, with a sensual smile, asks him to pay the debt, promising they will do anything in return. The other, excited, says he's learned to be bad and that for 20,000, they won't be going back to the dorm. Smiling mischievously, the debtor says they must first lend him 40,000. The young man walks away from the girls with a smile, ready for a new fundraising plan. On the bus, we see the students sitting while they travel calmly to the internship location. The chubby guy complains about being thirsty and asks if his friend brought water because he ate something very salty. Just then, a girl with brown hair smiles and gently offers a bottle to the protagonist. He takes the bottle and, without thinking twice, hands it to his friend who is dying of thirst. The young woman says she heard about what happened with his ex and hopes the guy gets over it soon. Smiling, she says she is actually happy that he finally sees who that girl really was. Knowing he lost money, the girl offers financial help, but the guy politely declines. The friend whispers that the girl is into him, but the dark-haired guy tells him to drink water and shut his mouth. The bus finally arrives at the destination and parks in front of a large, very modern building. All the students get off the vehicle while a man with glasses prepares to give instructions. Someone comments that the third floor is the best and that the first is just manual labor. The instructor begins to read aloud the names of the students who will stay on the coveted third floor. The stuck-up girls celebrate their good position and say that this hunter guy can solve anything. They look at the protagonist's friend and comment that she is pretty but has no connections. With malicious and envious looks, they plan to choose the knave girl as their next target. The man continues reading the list for the second floor, calling several other student names. Irritated, the chubby guy complains that their names weren't called even for the intermediate floor. The instructor adjusts his glasses with a serious look and announces that the remaining 3 are going to the ground floor. The girl gets very worried, thinking they won't learn anything useful staying down there. The other students mock the group, but the guy remains calm and shows no reaction. The protagonist doesn't let it slide and asks with a mocking smile what the criteria were for this ridiculous choice. The instructor adjusts his glasses and says everything was decided by the company and the school, making it a fair process. But the dark-haired guy laughs in his face and says that lying to his own people is something only scoundrels with no character would do. The man gets furious at the student's audacity and asks if he wants to be expelled for talking to a superior like that. Pointing his finger, he argues that it isn't unfair since the rich chubby guy is also on the ground floor along with the poor one. The friend loses his patience and shouts that the instructor is shameless because he asked his father for a bribe to get a promotion. The teacher is shocked to hear his dirty schemes being revealed in front of all the other students. Smiling, the chubby guy shows his phone and warns that he has everything recorded in case the liar wants to hear his own voice. The atmosphere gets tense between them while the instructor tries to maintain his posture in the face of that very serious accusation. Suddenly, a student in brown interferes, pointing his finger and accusing the duo of disrespecting the teachers. The stuck-up girls take the opportunity to spew poison, saying people like them shouldn't have even gotten the internship. The protagonist looks with contempt at the suck-up and asks who he thinks he is, telling him to get out of the way. The guy named Wang Da gets offended by being ignored and advances, asking how the dark-haired guy dares to speak like that to someone like him. Without thinking twice, the bully tries to land a cowardly punch on our hero's face to show who's boss. He screams furiously and puts all his strength into the blow, swearing he will end the guy right there. However, the dark-haired guy grabs the aggressor's fist with impressive ease, as if the attack were from a child. The bully breaks into a cold sweat and panics upon realizing he can't move his hand even a single millimeter. Then the protagonist retaliates with 2 humiliating slaps that crack loudly on the enemy's face, leaving everyone shocked. With his cheeks red and burning, the guy holds his face, unable to believe he got beaten up in front of everyone. Desperate, he runs to the professor screaming that Gavin has gone crazy and needs to be punished immediately. With a precise blow, the dark-haired guy knocks the bully down, and he falls unconscious on the cold parking lot floor. The professor gets furious and orders him to stop immediately, demanding an apology right now. But the guy doesn't listen and delivers a sharp slap to the instructor's face without showing any mercy. Seeing the scene, the chubby guy vibrates with excitement and congratulates his friend for the courage to stand up to that annoying man. The crowd is in shock, wondering if that is really Gavin since he had the courage to hit the master. Humiliated, the professor points his finger and shouts that the student is expelled from the internship program forever. The dark-haired guy says he doesn't care about the threat and lands another brutal punch, sending the man to dreamland. With the enemies on the ground, the 2 friends walk away calmly while the girl runs to catch up with them. The chubby guy looks at his companion, frightened, not understanding where such strength and sudden coldness came from. At that moment, the shy friend approaches them, seeming undecided about which path she should follow now. The instructor tries to stop the young woman from going with them, claiming it doesn't look as good for a girl to hang out with troublemakers. The stuck-up girls also try to influence her, saying that hanging out with Gavin will ruin her professional future. The protagonist then asks her to stay at the internship and let him know if anything strange happens there. Then he calls his chubby friend, saying that now it is time to take care of much more important business. They arrive at a huge logistics park that stores supplies sent to all the markets in the province. The friend immediately realizes that the plan isn't to work but to take the supplies, and the dark-haired guy praises his cleverness. But the chubby guy panics, saying it is impossible to rob that place because security must be maximum. Ignoring his colleague's fear, the guy spots a hiring sign at the entrance of one of the large warehouses. With a smile on his face, he approaches a group of workers and asks politely about the vacancy. A man with an unfriendly face responds dryly that they are hiring only women at the moment. The chubby guy gets indignant at the sign and asks what they will do since men are forbidden to enter there. But the dark-haired guy has a plan and orders his friend to go back and fetch the shy girl immediately. Meanwhile, we see the interior of the office where the interns are working, concentrated on computers. The 2 snakes receive a call asking for a pure girl to please a certain Mr. Jiyoung. With malicious smiles, they look at poor QQE, who barely knows the danger she is in nearby. The fake friends approach the young woman's desk and ask with forced sympathy how the work is going. Completely innocent, the girl thanks the 2, saying she learned many new things that day. The one with purple hair pretends to be a friend and says it is natural to help since they are classmates. Then she casts the bait, asking if the girl has ever had a boyfriend, and the answer is a very embarrassed no. The friend with glasses celebrates and says she has the perfect opportunity to set her up with a rich boyfriend. Scared, she refuses, saying she only wants to work, but the villains insist that the man has a lot of money. Not accepting no for an answer, they grab the girl by the arms and drag her out of there by force. The building is huge and luxurious, showing that this meeting will be in a very private and suspicious place. Arriving at the room door, the victim tries to resist but is pushed inside without any pity. Inside, a bald and fat old man drinks tea while evaluating the new merchandise with a look of desire. The girls present their colleague as if she were an object, and the young woman stands paralyzed with fear. Satisfied, the disgusting man sends the 2 to the finance department to pick up a good amount for the dirty job. They thank him for the payment, completely ignoring the cruel fate they set up for their own friend. Leaving the room, the one in purple says goodbye with a cruel smile, leaving the girl at the old man's mercy. The door slams shut, locking the innocent girl inside while she screams for help in vain. The disgusting old man smiles and says that if she is obedient, she will earn much more money than the other girls. The girl backs up to the door trembling and warns that she isn't that type, threatening to call the police right now. But the man laughs in her face, revealing that the security is all his and that no one will come to save her from that situation. Cornered, she begs to be let go, saying she just wants to work in peace, but the villain continues advancing. Out of patience, he delivers a violent slap that makes the phone fly far from the scared young woman's hand. With a psychotic look, he says that no woman leaves that room without passing through him and being used first. Just then, the phone falling on the floor starts to ring, showing the protagonist's name on the illuminated screen. Far away, the friends walk calmly without imagining the danger their colleague is in at that moment. The chubby guy notices the call and tells his friend that the shy girl is calling him. The dark-haired guy answers, smiling, asking what happened, but the line suddenly goes dead, causing confusion. His smile disappears upon realizing that the call dropped in a suspicious way, indicating that something very bad happened. With a bad feeling, he warns that something grave has occurred and runs off to return to the building urgently. Back in the room, the young woman is thrown brutally against the furniture, falling weakly to the floor. The old man puts his hand on his head, feeling pain, and shouts furiously that she doesn't know what's good for her. With a heavy foot, he steps on the phone, crushing the device and cutting off any chance of communication. The creep licks his lips, saying he loves the inexperienced ones and promises to transform her into a huge success. Desperate, the girl grabs a vase to defend herself, swearing she prefers death to surrendering to him. The man loses control and lands another brutal blow, knocking the girl down and promising to make her suffer greatly. Meanwhile, at the entrance, a security guard blocks the duo's path, preventing them from entering the place. The chubby guy puffs out his chest and shouts, asking if the guard is blind and doesn't recognize the young master there. The dark-haired guy pushes the guard forcefully aside, ordering the man to get out of the way immediately. The security guard gets confused by the attitude but hesitates to stop the supposed son of the company boss. The duo takes advantage of the opening and runs inside while the chubby guy points the way to the elevator. The guy doesn't listen to the employees' protests and continues walking as if he owned the place. The man scratches his head, thinking it's strange, because the boss's father wouldn't be that young. Suddenly the penny drops and his eyes go wide, realizing he was played for a fool to his face. Desperate, he starts screaming for reinforcements, warning that intruders have just entered the building. But the friends are fast, and the elevator doors close, leaving the guards screaming behind. Upon exiting into the corridor of the correct floor, they find the two snakes laughing and talking. The smile disappears from their faces and panic arises when they see the protagonist standing there in front of them. With a terrifying expression, he gets straight to the point, demands to know where his friend is right now. The one with purple hair tries to play dumb and questions what he is doing there without permission. The guy's look gets even darker as he warns that he won't ask again. Losing sense of the danger, the girl points her finger and shouts that he can't act like a savage there. The answer comes quick in the form of a sharp slap that hits the snob's face squarely without pity. The friend with glasses stands paralyzed with fear, watching her companion being thrown far by the impact of the blow. Without losing rhythm, the dark-haired guy spins his body and lands another slap, knocking the second girl to the floor. Looking at the two fallen and humiliated girls, he asks one more time where the shy young woman was taken. Crying and trembling, the villain points to the large door, revealing that the girl is trapped inside. While he advances, the girl warns that the boss is dangerous and that invading the room will cost him dearly. Without wasting time, he kicks the door with tremendous force, making the wood fly into the room. Inside, the girl screams for help, while the fat old man gets furious at the sudden interruption. The dark-haired guy sees the scene and his eyes burn with rage, demanding that the disgusting man let the girl go instantly. But the boss isn't shaken and asks with arrogance if the guy knows who he is messing with. Snapping his fingers, the villain orders the security guards to enter and beat the intruders until they are unalive. Immediately, several uniformed men armed with batons appear, surrounding the duo of friends. The chubby guy trembles with fear behind the hero, but the protagonist remains calm, facing the danger head-on. At the door, the two snakes celebrate, saying the guy deserves to perish for offending someone so powerful. However, the fight lasts little time because the young man moves fast, taking down the first guard with a precise blow. Next, he advances like a hurricane, throwing the security guards away as if they were ragdolls. The boss watches everything with his mouth open, unable to believe that his best men are being defeated so easily. In a matter of seconds, all the henchmen are stretched out on the floor, groaning in pain from the beating they took. Now alone and defenseless, the fat old man retreats on the floor, trembling with terror before that monster in a rage. The guy walks up to him with a killer look, asking what else the creep wanted to do with the girl. With coldness, he promises to ensure the man can never think of touching a woman in his life again. Then he lifts his foot and stomps with total force on the old man's groin, crushing what was left of his dignity. A scream of agony echoes through the room while the dark-haired guy turns and walks calmly to his scared friend. He holds her shoulders, asking if she is hurt, and the young woman cries, relieved to have been saved in time. With the girls safe, the protagonist turns his attention back to the two traitors who are still standing at the door. They tremble seeing his dark aura, realizing that now it is their turn to pay for what they did. The two snakes tremble with fear and try to use the excuse of being classmates to escape the beating. But the dark-haired guy ignores the excuse and lands a slap on the face of the one with glasses, asking if that is how they treat a friend. Next, he hits the other girl, warning that if she weren't useful, he would have already broken her bones. With all enemies defeated on the floor, the protagonist calls his friends to leave that dirty place quickly. The snob runs to see how the boss is and promises to call the police to arrest the intruders immediately. Furious, the old man slaps her, screaming that she cannot involve the police and demands to be taken to a hospital. Afterward, he calls a powerful contact asking for urgent help to make a certain boy disappear from the map. Already on the street, the shy girl thanks them for the rescue, but the chubby guy smiles, saying that's what friends are for. The dark-haired guy smiles gently and asks what her plans for the future are now that she lost that internship. Sad, she says she intended to get a job after the internship, but now the future seems quite uncertain. The guy then suggests getting a job for her right there, leaving the chubby friend surprised by the idea. The girl gets excited and asks if he can really do that, while a smile of hope appears on her face. They return to that warehouse from before, where the employees look confused at the group approaching. The protagonist points to his friend and asks seriously if they want to hire her to work at the location. The young woman hesitates, saying she studied finance and thinks it's strange to work in a manual labor warehouse far from the office. But the dark-haired guy says all work is dignified and guarantees she can shine anywhere with dedication. The employee looks at his watch impatiently and asks if she is going to accept the vacancy because the shift is about to end. The guy pushes his friend forward, telling her to register quickly, and the girl agrees, still a bit awkward. On the way out, he says goodbye, asking her to work hard and promises to come back to visit her in a few days. Laughing, the chubby guy says only she would accept becoming a security guard having a degree from such a famous university. He explains, smiling, that it was precisely her naivety that guaranteed that unique job opportunity. With the mission accomplished, the group prepares to leave, leaving the huge logistics park behind. Suddenly, a gun appears out of nowhere, pointed directly at our hero's head, who freezes on the spot. The chubby guy raises his hands trembling, while the dark-haired guy recognizes that those are Mr. Lowe's henchmen. One of the men warns that the 3-day deadline is up and that now they have come to collect the organs that were promised. The chubby guy hides in fear, but the protagonist evaluates the situation, realizing he can win easily. But a malicious smile appears on his face as he decides to go with them because the real show is about to begin. A short time later, the van parks in an abandoned warehouse far from everything, and everyone is forced to get out. The location is isolated and perfect for crimes, while the two friends observe the environment with great attention. A henchman with glasses points the gun and shouts impatiently, ordering them to keep walking without looking back. In that instant, the protagonist's look changes, completely focusing on the enemy with a lethal intensity. With absurd speed, he disarms the bandit and delivers a powerful blow before the man can react. The sound of the shot echoes through the warehouse as the henchman himself is fatally hit by the weapon he was holding. The dark-haired guy lands with style, holding the smoking pistol, while the enemy's body falls inert to the ground. The other three accomplices are in shock and scream furiously that the kid will pay dearly for that audacity. But the answer comes quickly with a sequence of precise shots that take down the bandits one after another. Sliding across the floor like a professional, he fires at the last target without giving any chance of defense. The chubby guy's jaw drops, and he praises his friend's incredible aim, saying he looks like an elite sniper. The guy remembers that in his past life, he trained his aim a lot to survive the apocalypse, since he had no powers. Then he tosses a gun to his friend, who panics, saying he has no idea how to use that thing. The dark-haired guy asks if he plays video games, and the chubby guy says he is a pro even while holding the gun all wrong. Then the shooter tells him to pretend it's a game while they advance together inside the dangerous warehouse. They spot a truck being loaded and several suspicious boxes scattered around the courtyard of that place. The friend recognizes the logo of a famous biotechnology company and is confused about what they are doing there. The protagonist remembers that in the future this company was the savior, but now realizes they hide secrets. Two armed guards notice the intruder's presence and shout, asking who dares to enter that location. But before they finish the sentence, two accurate shots hit their heads, dropping both instantly. The guy checks the badge of one of the dead men, confirming that they really are employees of that corporation. Further ahead, Old Man Low talks to a blonde woman, guaranteeing that the new parts are very fresh. The executive smiles, satisfied, saying that with those two boys they will finally complete the batch of 6. Suddenly, the old man's eyes go wide in shock, seeing his merchandise walking free and armed. The woman gets confused, and the dark-haired guy questions why a biotechnology company hangs out with so many henchmen. The head of organ trafficking is left without reaction, seeing the audacity of the boy, who should be tied up now. Without wasting time, the hero points the gun directly at them, with a cold look determined to end everything. Recovering his speech, the old man screams, desperately ordering his men to eliminate the two kids immediately. Several soldiers emerge from the shadows, pointing rifles and promising to fill the intruders with lead. The shootout begins, and the protagonist dives to the floor, firing against the enemies with surgical precision. He slides across the floor, dodging bullets while hitting every target that appears in front of him without missing. The chubby guy watches everything open-mouthed, impressed with his friend's supernatural skill on the trigger. Furious at seeing his business ruined, Old Man Low foams with rage, ordering everyone to attack with full force. With frightening precision, he eliminates 3 henchmen at once while sliding across the warehouse floor. Reinforcements arrive and are shocked by the guy's speed, screaming for someone to stop him soon. The blonde woman steps on the body of one of the fallen with contempt while observing the mess made there. The scenario is of war, with bodies scattered everywhere while the bosses face the armed duo. Pointing the gun, the dark-haired guy returns a question, asking what they really want in that place. Old Man Lo breaks into a cold sweat and shouts indignantly, saying that a brat like him has no right to know anything. Out of patience for speeches, the shooter fires hit in the villain's shoulder, who screams in pain instantly. With the smoking gun, the hero mocks, asking the old man to repeat what he said because he didn't hear it right. Kneeling and bleeding, the criminal tries to maintain his pose, saying he isn't afraid of children like them. The protagonist then turns to his chubby friend and orders coldly that he end the old man right now. The guy's look is intense and scary, pressuring his companion to pull the trigger without hesitating. Seeing he's gonna die, the bandit draws a hidden weapon and runs screaming for them to go to hell. In fright, the chubby guy closes his eyes and fires the gun, making a loud bang echo through the empty warehouse. The shot is accurate and hits the middle of Old Man Lo's forehead, who stands paralyzed without understanding what happened. The body falls lifeless, and the friend looks at the gun, trembling, unable to believe he took someone's life. The dark-haired guy ignores the dead man and focuses on the blonde woman, saying she knows much more than that trash. The executive backs away scared, asking who the hell he is and how he knows her surname like that. With a provocative smile, he says the name doesn't matter, but if she insists, she can call him daddy. Furious at the disrespect, she screams, demanding respect, but is interrupted by another sudden shot. The bullet hits the woman's leg, and she falls screaming and threatening the guy with her company's power. The blonde screams in pain, holding her wounded leg, while the dark-haired guy stares at her, showing no pity. He warns coldly that he doesn't care about empty threats and that this won't save her skin. Desperate, the woman begs for her life, promising to tell everything she knows about the company's dirty business. Trembling with terror, she reveals that they use organs provided by the old man to perform experiments on humans. The guy frowns, interested, and asks what kind of macabre tests they are conducting with people. She explains they research evolution and biological weapons, offering to take him to the secret laboratory now. In his mind appears the image of a mantis monster, remembering the creatures he saw in the apocalypse. The hero realizes, shocked, that the company was already creating those abominations long before the end of the world. The executive is confused and asks how he knows about such a secret project that no one should know. With a dark smile, the dark-haired guy says she doesn't need to know who he is, but rather accept her own end. Terror takes over the woman's face upon realizing she won't leave there alive regardless of what she says. Without hesitating, the protagonist fires his weapon, once more silencing the villain forever in that warehouse. The woman's body falls lifeless on the floor, while the guy observes the scene with a cold and calculating look. He crouches near her and begins to search her pockets, looking for something that might be useful for his plans. To his luck, he finds a magnetic access card that belongs to the headquarters of the evil corporation. The dark-haired guy keeps the valuable item, knowing that it will be his key to investigate the company from the inside. Meanwhile, the chubby guy opens one of the truck's boxes and almost vomits, seeing the bizarre content. He screams, horrified, warning that the container is packed with human organs ready for transport. 3 days pass, and we see that perverted old man from before answering the phone, very irritated, in his office. As an investor, he shouts furiously, demanding to know why they hid the problems in biotechnology from him. The disgusting bald man calls a contact, furiously demanding that this Gavin be eliminated for good as quickly as possible. On the other side, a strong man smiles, saying he already had scores to settle and that he will send his men soon. Meanwhile, at the mansion, we see that the main structure has been reinforced to withstand even a tank. The contractor informs the dark-haired guy that the internal part with water and ventilation will be ready in just 1 week. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman approaches them, introducing herself as Aunt Lou from the residence committee. Smiling, she asks the new neighbor to join the neighborhood group, showing a code for him to scan. The guy takes out his phone and accepts the invitation without imagining that the woman would soon show her true face. The neighbor eyes the cardboard boxes from the construction work and says she's going to come in to take everything for herself now. The protagonist blocks the passage, politely saying it isn't convenient because they are under construction. But the pushy woman insists, pushing the guy and calling him stingy for not giving the trash to her. Trying to be patient, he promises to take the boxes to her house in a week to resolve the situation. The old woman flips out, screaming that in a week the cardboard will be gone, and demands to take everything right now by force. The hero's patience runs out and he changes his tone, ordering the woman to get lost before he gets angry. Shocked by the answer, she puts her hands on her hips, asking why he is cursing at a lady. His look gets dark as he warns that if she doesn't disappear, she will get a well-deserved slap on the face. The neighbor runs away scared, but screams that he will regret disrespecting the elderly. Far from there, the blonde playboy Zach places a briefcase full of money on the table in front of a one-eyed man. The assassin with an eye patch smiles and says the vast dragon group is ready to serve the young master. With hatred in his eyes, Zach warns that the job is personal and demands that Gavin disappear from this world forever. The killer guarantees he is professional and promises the target will disappear today without leaving traces. The playboy laughs with a malicious look and says that with the power he has, he can crush the rival like an insect. Meanwhile, the assassins arrive at the luxury hotel where the target is staying in the presidential suite. The one-eyed man tells his men to stay alert and surround the place so as not to let the boy escape. With a cruel smile, the leader warns to go in with everything because he doesn't want errors in this important mission. Inside, the dark-haired guy rests on the sofa thinking that since he was reborn, everything is following his plan. He stretches his arms, calculating that in 3 days the most important part of the project will begin. Suddenly, his ears catch a suspicious noise coming from the hallway, breaking the silence of the night. Outside, the assassin with the eye patch turns off the light and prepares to invade the dark room. Thinking the target is sleeping, they break down the door and invade the place with guns drawn. The group rushes in with bloodless, ready to catch the guy unprepared in bed. In seconds, the room is packed with armed criminals searching every corner of that huge suit. The leader stops suddenly upon noticing that there is someone else there in front blocking their way. He points the gun and orders the subject to stay where he is without making sudden movements. But the big guy smiles mockingly and points his finger back, warning that the one who shouldn't move is him. This is the fighter Bio, who mocks the invaders, saying they shouldn't be so careless like that. The one-eyed man is surprised to be confronted and realizes he might have fallen into a trap. The fighter reminds him that the last group that came after the boy got beaten badly and even lost their money. Behind him, the protagonist is sitting calmly as if he were just watching a show. Smiling, he says he knew Zack wouldn't let it slide and would send someone to try to get revenge. The dark-haired guy's look gets serious as he warns that now they will understand who they messed with. The leader of the invaders points the gun at the guy and asks how he still dares to be arrogant in that situation. Just behind, the fighter with the mohawk screams furiously, asking if the subject went crazy speaking like that. The man with the eye patch ignores it and warns with a cruel smile that today will be the end of the line for our protagonist. The big guy beside him seems to be losing patience as he clenches his teeth, ready to initiate the attack. Without wasting any more time, the two leaders advance down the corridor, leading the rest of the gang to corner the target in the room. Suddenly, the one-eyed man stops abruptly upon sensing a strange presence and orders everyone to stay alert right now. He points the gun at a shadow ahead, ordering whoever is there to stay put and not try any funny business. But a voice behind him says he is the one who shouldn't move, while a cold barrel touches his head. To everyone's surprise, the fighter with the mohawk betrayed the group and now points the pistol directly at his former ally. The leader is shocked to realize the betrayal and screams desperately that they fell into an enemy trap. With a sadistic smile, the traitor gives the final order for his men to end the rival group right there. The shootout begins intensely in the corridor, with the fighters' men firing without mercy against the surprised invaders. The one-eyed man tries to retaliate, screaming that the kid brought reinforcements, and orders his henchmen to grab their weapons to fight. Chaos takes over the place with bullets flying everywhere while the leader tries desperately to survive. But the advantage is all on the other side, and the one-eyed man's men fall one by one without having a chance of defense. Cornered on the floor, the boss of the assassins faces the traitor and asks what the hell he thinks he is doing. The fighter smiles coldly and replies that he came to fulfill his mission, which is to eliminate the assassin sent by the playboy. While the massacre happens outside, the dark-haired guy relaxes on the sofa, satisfied that everything is going as planned. He stretches his arms, thinking that in 3 days, the most crucial phase of his great plan will finally begin. At that moment, his cell phone vibrates with a message in the college group notifying him that he was expelled for misconduct. The professor doesn't waste time and sends a message in the group cursing the guy as an unemployed bum in front of everyone. But the dark-haired guy retaliates, exposing right there that the master has a secret affair with the school director's wife. The chubby friend's jaw drops at the bombshell and asks how he discovered such a scandalous secret. On the other side of the screen, the man panics, sweating cold, while the young man smiles, savoring his revenge. He remembers that in his past life, the professor himself confessed all this when human morality collapsed. Desperate, the traitor orders the admin to delete the group and threatens anyone who dares to spread that conversation. Laughing a lot, the chubby guy says he already saved the screenshots and will post them on the school forum for everyone to see. He looks with admiration at his friend, realizing that the dark-haired guy always has an ace up his sleeve to win. But soon the mood gets heavy when he remembers that the guy's father still thinks his son has gone completely crazy. The protagonist guarantees that after resolving one last matter, he will prove the truth to his father, whatever the cost. The scene changes to a quiet residential neighborhood where tall buildings surround the dark streets of that night. The duo arrives at the destination and the companion questions what kind of important event could occur in that place. They observe a modern house that stands out in the neighborhood, appearing to belong to a well-off family. However, inside, the reality is different, with a drunk and violent man holding a heavy object in his hand. In the corner of the room, we see a terrible scene where a small girl is locked in a cage like an animal. The drunkard's eyes are bloodshot with fury while he looks for someone to take out his frustration on. The young girl stares at the monster through the bars with a look that mixes fear and defiant courage. The man throws an empty bottle on the floor, making the glass shatter all over the dirty and messy room. He screams, insulting his daughter, saying he already spent all the money her mother left as an inheritance. Grabbing the girl's hair, he warns that he will sell her to get money to drink before selling the house. The drunk father holds his daughter by the hair and says her mother died because she didn't buy booze for him. In an act of courage and despair, the girl bites the aggressor's hand with force, trying to break free. Furious with the pain, the man raises his arm, ready to beat the girl to death right there. but the bedroom door is broken down with a powerful kick flying straight onto the monster. The impact is violent, and the abusive father is crushed by the wood while the heroes invade the place. He stands up stunned and stares at the intruders, asking who dares to invade his house like that. The dark-haired guy looks at the girl and finds it strange because in his past life he never heard of a child there. He recognizes the man as a future villain who will gain spatial powers in the apocalypse. In the other life, the scoundrel stole government supplies, leaving an entire city to starve to death. His fate was cruel, being devoured by an ice demon and taking the resources to the grave. The guy realizes he arrived at the exact moment because a little longer and the villain would have ended the girl. The drunkard thinks they are traffickers and negotiates the price of his daughter, saying she is pretty like her mother. The chubby guy loses his mind hearing that and points his finger, calling the man a heartless beast. With eyes wide with rage, he screams that the subject is worse than a pig for selling his own daughter. The father ignores the insults and points a bottle, accusing the duo of being the real criminals there. Indignant, the friend denies being a trafficker and asks where he looks like someone who would do that. The man charges with the bottle in hand, promising to split the chubby guy's head in half. A shot echoes through the room and the aggressor is hit in the leg, falling to the floor before managing to attack. The dark-haired guy smiles proud and praises his friend's aim, who holds the gun still smoking in his hands. With the gun in hand, the chubby guy warns seriously that he won't let a scoundrel like that escape unpunished. Just then the girl grabs a bottle and hits the father, who is distracted, with full force on the head. The chubby guy widens his eyes in shock, unable to believe the violent attitude of the little one. The man puts his hand on the bleeding wound and screams furiously, promising to end her. But the young girl doesn't retreat and uses the broken bottleneck to strike the monster once more. Fallen on the floor, the father tries to crawl while threatening to skin his own daughter alive. With eyes full of hatred, she lifts the bottle, ready to attack again without fear. The friend tries to stop the tragedy, but the dark-haired guy holds him, telling him to let her continue. Then the girl unloads all her accumulated fury, striking the abusive father repeatedly. The protagonist knows she needs to release this pent-up hatred so as not to go crazy later. Finally, the man stops moving and the girl stands trembling over his body. The chubby guy gets scared seeing that he died, but the guy says coldly that the villain deserved it. Checking the time, the dark-haired guy asks his friend to clean the girl up and calm her down a little now. Meanwhile, he climbs onto the roof and observes mysterious lights falling from the dark sky above. Smiling, he realizes that the great opportunity before the end of the world has finally arrived. A golden light wraps around his body and he celebrates having achieved the power he wanted so much. Now his mind accesses a gigantic dimensional space, perfect for stocking lots of food. Back to reality, he hears the sound of sirens approaching quickly from there. Looking down, the protagonist sees a police car parking right in front. A handcuffed bald man points to the building, notifying the police officers that the crime scene is there. The officers draw their weapons and prepare to invade the location and arrest everyone inside. We see the girl now clean and wearing new clothes, looking like a totally different person from before. The chubby guy smiles and comments that after a good bath, the little sister revealed herself to be a very cute child. But the mood changes when the bald man shouts, warning that the authorities have surrounded the building and are about to enter. Suddenly, the dead father's body on the floor begins to glow intensely, leaving the informant in total panic. In seconds, the corpse dissolves into particles of light and disappears completely without leaving any trace or proof. The dark-haired guy, maintaining his cool, warns his friends not to panic because fleeing now is no longer the best option. The door is kicked in violently and the police officers invade the room, pointing guns and shouting for no one to move. With a serious look, the officer sweeps the place with pistol in hand, demanding to know where the owner of that house is. The policeman frowns, irritated, looking for the suspect, who is reported but finds no one dead there. Confused and sweating cold, the bald man tries to explain that the man disappeared, but his words seem like madness at that time. Ignoring the crazy guy, the guard turns to the duo of students and asks what boys are doing in a place like this. The protagonist activates his actor mode and lies, saying he's a distant cousin who just came to visit his poor relative. The chubby guy tries to disguise his nervousness and introduces himself as a classmate who came to accompany his friend on the visit. Suspicious, the officer squats down to the child's height and asks gently for her not to be afraid to speak. The girl looks at him with those big innocent eyes and replies with a weak voice that her name is Sixie. Then the man points his finger at the dark-haired guy and asks the fatal question, wanting to know if she really knows that guy. Time seems to stop while everyone awaits the little one's answer, which could send the two to jail now. To everyone's surprise, she confirms the lie, saying he is her cousin and that her mother had already spoken of him. The chubby guy exhales relieved, wiping the sweat from his forehead, and whispers that they need to get out of there as fast as possible. But the dark-haired guy ignores the rush and turns to the orphan girl, asking if she would like to leave with them. The girl agrees with her head, and the guy warns she can go along as long as she isn't dead weight for the group. Then he asks seriously if the little one knows how to prepare instant noodles, because that is a vital skill. With eyes shining, she closes her fists and says excitedly that she is an expert at it, lightening the mood. Satisfied with the answer, the dark-haired guy smiles and calls everyone to leave there before more problems appear. On the street, the chubby guy complains of hunger and suggests eating a spicy stew to relax after so much tension. Cut to a luxurious mansion where the sign warns that only 3 days remain until the ice apocalypse. Outside, the friend trembles with fear, saying he still doesn't feel ready to face his father. The protagonist puts his hand on his shoulder and says they need to convince the old man today, whatever the cost. Inside, a mustached man reads a newspaper and kicks the boys out, saying he doesn't have time to listen to nonsense. The son insists, desperately warning that the end of the world is coming and they need to prepare soon. But the father only cares about his tea and shouts for them to get out of the way because they are interrupting his moment. Suddenly, the guy's hand passes over the cup, which disappears in the blink of an eye, leaving only the saucer. The man with glasses widens his eyes, confused, looking for his drink that mysteriously disappeared from the table. Smiling, the dark-haired guy explains that wasn't magic, but the superpower he tried to explain before. The old man crosses his arms, skeptically, saying he's seen many cheap tricks and won't fall for that smooth talk. Out of patience, the hero decides to be more radical and makes the entire sofa glow with that mysterious bluish light. In an instant, the furniture vanishes, and the father falls on his butt on the floor, screaming in fright at the sudden drop. The guy looks from above with a victorious smile, asking if now the uncle finally believes in what they say. Even on the floor, the stubborn man adjusts his glasses and says he refuses to believe that 2 kids managed to fool him. Then the protagonist extends his hand again, ready to show that his powers are very real and dangerous. The father falls, sitting on the hard floor, looking at the 2 guys without understanding how the sofa disappeared suddenly. Sweating cold, the man adjusts the glasses on his face, trying to process that he just fell on his butt on the floor. The 3 stare at the empty space in the room where before there was a heavy piece of furniture that disappeared into thin air. The old man screams in panic, confirming the object vanished, and the dark-haired guy asks, smiling, if now he believes. To test if he isn't dreaming, the father lands a strong slap on the chubby guy's cheek, who is standing next to him. The friend holds his red face, understanding nothing, and asks why the hell he got hit for free like that. The man widens his eyes and shouts that it is real, because he felt his hand hurt when hitting the guy's face. The scene changes, showing the blue sky and the warning that only 2 days remain until the freezing apocalypse. On the phone, we see a bank notification confirming the transfer of an absurd amount of money. The chubby guy almost falls backward, seeing that his friend's father really sent $700 million to the account. The dark-haired guy takes command and orders his friend to focus on buying cold weather clothes and stocks to survive. Meanwhile, we see the imposing facade of the mansion, which was renovated to serve as a fortress at the end of the world. The protagonist walks through the corridors, checking if the construction and renovation turned out as he requested. With an approving smile, he praises the contractor's work, saying he was very satisfied with everything. The person responsible for the work adjusts his glasses and admits that was the most difficult project he ever realized. He guarantees that with sufficient supplies, one can live locked in that house until the day they die. The guy shakes the builder's hand and promises to transfer the final payment as quickly as possible. Before saying goodbye, the dark-haired guy warns the man to stock up on food and not leave the house in the coming days. The builder gets confused by the warning and asks, laughing, if some super typhoon is coming around. Smiling, he agrees to rest a little since he worked too much on this tiring work lately. Then several trucks arrive at the mansion, bringing tons of essential supplies for the end of the world. The chubby friend warns proudly that he bought only the most expensive and best quality items on the market. Happy with the news, the dark-haired guy orders everything to be unloaded in the villa so he can store it in his dimensional space. An elderly neighbor and her grandson observe the movement, curiously asking if they are going to open a supermarket there. The boy points to a box of sweets and starts throwing a tantrum, demanding his grandmother get a lollipop for him. Without respecting others' property, the woman lifts her grandson so he can reach the box of treats. Just then, the companion runs to the protagonist with a look of worry, warning that a big problem has arisen. Desperate, he complains he can't spend all the money because there is still an absurd amount left in the account. The dark-haired guy solves it easily and sends his friend to the large grain warehouses to buy all the available stock. He remembers that in the future these grains would be stolen by villains and decides to nip the evil in the bud right now. An employee approaches, warning that they can't deliver the goods because a lady is blocking the way. The scene shows the ill-mannered grandson stomping on top of the fragile boxes while the grandmother tries to open the packaging. The protagonist arrives, furious, questioning what the hell they think they are doing messing with his things. With the utmost audacity, the woman says the grandson just wanted a candy and that he shouldn't care about trifles. The guy stares at the pushy neighbor with an icy look, totally disapproving of that invasive and clueless attitude. She points her finger in his face, saying young people shouldn't be stingy and that the candy serves as an apology. The old woman takes the opportunity to demand he leave all the cardboard boxes at her door for her to sell later. Losing patience, the hero points to the exit and screams, ordering the woman to disappear from his sight immediately. Ignoring the scolding, the spoiled brat celebrates, holding up the giant lollipop he just stole from someone else's cargo. Furious at the disrespect, the dark-haired guy screams, demanding the woman take that boy off the box right now. The The brat sticks his tongue out mocking the hero and says he will destroy him in the name of monsters. The guy clenches his fists with a terrifying expression and warns he better get down the easy way or the hard way. The grandmother interferes, pointing her finger in his face, screaming for him to stay away from her precious grandson. But the boy loses his balance on the box and falls on his butt on the ground, crying loudly and pretending he got hurt badly. The old woman runs desperately, picking up the child and accusing the dark-haired guy of hurting the boy on purpose. With a cold smile, he says it served him right, and they should learn not to touch what isn't theirs. Far from there, the two stuck-up girls observe everything and comment that the guy went crazy spending so much money like that. The friend with blue hair says stocking food in that heat is stupidity because everything will spoil before they consume it. The redhead agrees and calls the other to go to the beauty salon, guaranteeing that Zach will take care of the problem soon. One day before the apocalypse, we see the logistics park under a clear blue sky that does not indicate the imminent danger. The chubby guy warns he already spent all the money buying 5 whole barns of grain for their stock. The dark-haired guy smiles satisfied and says now all that's left is to fetch the shy friend and collect the grains to finish. They find the girl working hard and she says happily that she was promoted to warehouse supervisor. The guy warns that her work there is over and she must resign immediately to leave with them. But before leaving, he asks for one last very important favor that will guarantee the success of the survival plan. With a serious look, he whispers in her ear, asking for the keys to the main warehouse to break in at night. The young woman is surprised by the bold request but agrees to help, trusting fully in the friend who saved her. Meanwhile, the chubby guy observes everything, admiring her loyalty and the dark-haired guy's boldness in risking so much. The protagonist explains he needs to take the grains before the villains of the future get their hands on them. With the keys guaranteed, he prepares for the last stage of the plan before the world freezes forever. In the dead of night, the girl is surprised to see the dark-haired guy there and asks what he is doing at that time. The guy asks her to wait inside the warehouse and warns her not to tell anyone about their presence. With an intense look, he reinforces the request, demanding absolute secrecy about what is going to happen there now. He warns that what he will do might be shocking, but begs the young woman not to make a single sound. The girl blushes and agrees with her head, promising to stay silent and obey his command without fail. Next, the group inspects the gigantic piles of boxes containing all the food stocked at the location. The protagonist notifies the warehouse chief that his men will take over now, dismissing the old team. The man hands over the keys to the other warehouses and says goodbye, asking them to call if they need anything. With the place empty, the dark-haired guy looks at his friend and smiles, warning that the time for action has finally arrived. Extending his hand, he activates his power and orders the system to collect everything in front of him now. A bluish light wraps around the environment while the spatial ability begins to suck the supplies from there. The boxes disappear in record speed, leaving the huge warehouse completely empty in seconds. The two observe the now deserted space, impressed with the effectiveness of his storage power. Suddenly, the manager runs back because he forgot something important and walks toward the open door. Upon entering, he adjusts his glasses and almost falls backwards, seeing that the place is totally clean and empty. The man goes into shock, wondering if he is hallucinating because a mountain of food disappeared out of nowhere. Meanwhile, the dark-haired guy walks to another locked gate and knocks lightly, warning he has already arrived there. The girl opens the door shyly and smiles, relieved to see that the guy came to get her as he had promised. He explains excitedly that his space freezes time, keeping even hot noodles fresh for centuries. The friend asks if time there is 0, and the hero says he still needs to research the details better. Smiling, she runs to catch up with the group while the guy walks calmly down the corridor. They arrive in front of another giant pile of supplies ready to be collected now. Extending his hand, the dark-haired guy releases his bluish energy to suck up all that valuable stock. In an instant, the shelves become empty and the merchandise vanishes as if it were pure magic. The girl puts her hands over her mouth in total shock, unable to believe the miracle she just saw. Smiling, he confirms the feat while she asks, scared, how everything disappeared so fast.